Iowa is a long way from the major battlefields of the Civil War, but more than 76,000 Iowans served in the Union Army, and back then, that was a big part of the state's population.
Yeah, and some of the most important battles of the Civil War were fought in the month of September, such as the Battle of Antietam. How you'd be surprised by how many of those Civil War veterans are actually buried here in Siouxland, many in some of the smallest communities.
KTIV's Larry Wentz shares the story of how they got there and who's caring for those graves decades later.
You got involved when you were the president of the American Legion Auxiliary.
Yep. Mary Jo and son Jason Ruggets have a special connection to the cemetery in Correctionville. For years on the 4th of July, they decorated the graves of the cemetery Civil War veterans.
Yes, and I was tired by the time I had decorated 57 of them. That was more than I thought.
Mary Jo and a friend also took on the task of documenting their lives.
You went through the records of the newspaper, and they did really good job with their what they had to say about the veterans.
One came from England, another from Ireland, one even from Germany.
This is the gravesite of Joseph T. Smith. The New York native ended up in Correctionville with his wife and lived with his daughter when he passed away. Smith fought in numerous battles and served as a courier for General Ulysses S. Grant. But he also served as a personal guard for President Lincoln during the Gettysburg Address. And he stood guard over Lincoln's body following Lincoln's assassination. A virtual cemetery created by Roy and Linda Lynn show more than 800 Civil War veterans are buried in the county, many in smaller communities like Anthon, Cushing, Sloan with roughly 30, Sergeant Bluff with slightly more. This 16-foot-tall monument is among a number in Woodbury County, honoring the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who fought for the Grand Army of the Republic, or the North, during the Civil War.
Sometimes picking sides wasn't always easy.
We did research, and come to find out, I could go for either side because I'm related to Grant and I'm also related to Robert E. Lee. Family is on both sides of the United States, and so it's kind of hard to make up your mind as to who you would really want to support.
No matter which side they fought on, today there are people who still remember and honor the veterans even here in Correctionville.
Well, because it was a way that I could say thank you to them for doing what they did.
So why did so many of those veterans from other places end up here? The answer is land. By 1870, which is 5 years after the end of the Civil War, Iowa's population grew to more than 1 million people.